If you've ever watched a tennis match and felt that strange, slightly guilty smile rise on your face when a player snaps their racket across their knee or smashes it into the ground, you're not alone. There is something undeniably human, undeniably relatable, and undeniably uncomfortable about the moment a player loses emotional control. We laugh, we wince, we shake our heads, but deep inside, we recognize something of ourselves in that moment. And the truth is, the reason we laugh when players break rackets has far more to do with our own psychology than theirs. Today, we're going to look at racket abuse not as a violation, not as entertainment, and not as something wrong, but as a mirror. A moment in tennis where the mask slips, the human underneath is revealed, and we catch a brief, unfiltered glimpse of the emotional lives we all try so hard to hide. And whether we laugh, cringe, or secretly cheer, our reaction reveals pieces of our own emotional story. Let's start by acknowledging something simple. Racket smashing is funny because it's dramatic. It's sudden. It's unpredictable. It's a rupture in the smooth, polished world of professional tennis. One moment the player is graceful, precise, composed. The next moment they are a storm. And storms, for some reason, make us laugh. Maybe because they break tension. Maybe because they feel familiar. Maybe because watching someone else lose control gives us a strange sense of relief. But here's the deeper truth. When a player breaks a racket, they are expressing something many of us feel on a daily basis. The frustration of expectations we can't meet, the pressure of perfection, the exhaustion of pretending to be calm when inside we're unraveling. We laugh not because the moment is silly, but because emotionally, it's too real. In everyday life, you don't get to slam your laptop against the wall when your boss sends you another last-minute task. You don't get to scream into the grocery store floor when things don't go your way. You don't get to smash your steering wheel when someone cuts you off in traffic. Society doesn't give you those outlets. But tennis does. Tennis gives players permission to externalize frustration. And when they do, when they release what we lock inside, a part of us recognizes the freedom in that moment. We laugh because we see ourselves, but in a form we are not allowed to express. Racket smashing also activates our sense of empathy, even if we don't consciously realize it. When you watch a player implode emotionally, you feel the intensity behind it. You feel the pressure that built up. You understand, even if you don't play tennis, that this moment didn't come from nowhere. It came from 1,000 small disappointments layered on top of each other. It came from fear of failure. It came from perfectionism. It came from the weight of identity and expectation. But because we're watching from a distance, safe, detached, unseen, we can let ourselves react freely. Our laughter becomes a coping mechanism. It helps us manage the discomfort of seeing someone experience something we've all felt but don't want to admit. The psychology of people is strange. We laugh at things that scare us. We laugh at things that expose us. And sometimes, we laugh at things that remind us of our own emotional fragility. Racket abuse is a perfect example of this. It's a moment of truth wrapped in a moment of chaos. Another layer, racket smashing disrupts the image we have of athletes. We like to think of players as superhumans, disciplined, stoic, emotionally unshakable. When that image shatters, even for a moment, it creates emotional dissonance. And dissonance often turns into humor. The mind tries to neutralize discomfort by making the moment lighter than it really is. We laugh because we don't know what else to do. But perhaps the most fascinating psychological layer is this. Racket smashing exposes the inner child inside the adult. The child who gets frustrated. The child who wants things to go right. The child who feels powerless. The child who expresses emotions with immediacy instead of suppression. When a player smashes their racket, that child bursts through. And something about that is disarming, relatable, familiar. Because no matter how old we grow, that child never disappears. We just learn to hide them. Watching someone else fail to hide theirs feels strangely comforting. It reminds us that even the best players in the world lose control, that perfection isn't real, that even champions break inside. And perhaps we laugh because, for a moment, the gap between them and us becomes smaller. But on a deeper emotional level, the moment also makes us uncomfortable. Because racket smashing is a reminder of how thin the boundary is between self-control and emotional collapse. It reminds us of our own volatility, our own emotional limits, our own internal pressure cooker. We laugh, but we also reflect. We laugh, but something inside us says, I know that feeling. And this is where the psychology becomes subtle. Racket smashing is funny not because it's ridiculous, but because it's honest. Now let's explore what racket abuse means for the player. From the inside, a racket smash isn't about drama. It's not about ego. It's not even about anger. It's about release. A moment of emotional exhale. A way to let the internal pressure burst outward instead of collapsing inward. It's a mechanism, a flawed one, a messy one, but still a mechanism. For emotional survival, when everything feels too much, the body tries to offload tension any way it can. For some, it's crying. For some, yelling. For some, deep breathing. For some, shutting down. And for some players, it's the snap of graphite hitting the ground. The problem is not that rackets break. The problem is that emotional pressure builds in silence until something breaks with it. So why do we judge players for what we inadvertently relate to? Because their moment is public. Because their breakdown is visible. Because their emotional truth has no filter. And our laughter sometimes hides our own discomfort with vulnerability. We laugh at racket smashing because it is a rare glimpse of emotional authenticity in a sport that often demands control. We laugh because we recognize ourselves. We laugh because we wish we could express ourselves that honestly. And we laugh because the truth of that moment hits somewhere deep inside. But if we look closer, the laughter fades. And what's left is empathy, understanding, recognition, a reminder that all of us, in different ways, carry emotional storms we don't know how to release. Now, here is your CTA. If this episode helped you see racket smashing through a deeper, more human lens, subscribe to the channel for more brutally honest tennis psychology content. Share this episode with someone who always jokes about racket abuse. They might discover something surprising about themselves. And in the comments, tell me, when you see a racket smash, what do you actually feel? Laughter, empathy, judgment, or recognition? Your answer might help someone understand why these moments resonate far more than we admit. And now, for our closing message. Behind every smashed racket is a story, a buildup of emotion, a moment of human truth breaking through the armor of performance. And behind every laugh we release, there is a reflection of ourselves, our frustrations, our fears, our unspoken emotions. Racket smashing is not just about anger. It is about the complexity of being human. And when we laugh, we are really acknowledging that complexity. We are saying, I see you. I've been there. Maybe not on a court, maybe not with a racket, but I know exactly what that moment feels like. And the more we understand these moments, the more compassion we find. Not just for the players we watch, but for the parts of ourselves we carry quietly in the background of our own lives.